Welcome to this interview with bikablo Global Trainers. I'm so happy that you could make the time. It's Friday, 4 p.m. Here in Germany, where I am. And it should be the same time in the Netherlands where Desirée is sitting. Anyway,
yes, it is.
Fantastic. So it's afternoon for us and it's morning for the others. So how about we start with a very short introduction with your name, which country you sit in, and because I already spoiled Daisy a little bit, Daisy, why don't you start?
Sure. Hi, my name is Desirée. I'm currently based in the Netherlands, where I'm from, and I spend a lot of time in Germany at the headquarters of bikablo in Cologne.
Thank you so much. Jill, do you want to continue?
Absolutely. So my name is Jill Greenbaum, and I am in New York, just outside New York City.
Okay, then I go next.
Please do.
My name is Alexandra, and I am in Lima, Peru, in South America.
Fantastic. So I really love the diversity that we have on our global trainer team. The last interview that I had was with Koen and Charlie from Belgium and with Andy from Scotland. And now we have, so these 3 guys, and now we have 3 women. And again, I'm super happy in terms of diversity. I already said that all of us are bikablo trainers, but maybe you can tell our viewers just a little bit about how you became to be a bikablo trainer. Daisy, we're just going to use the same order. Daisy, why don't you start?
Sure. Yeah, it kind of suddenly happened in a way. I was working with people. I loved being with groups. I moved to Cologne. I worked with the communicationslootsen, which I still do, and I was guiding processes, and suddenly I bumped into Martin and Karina with their markers, and they were explaining and showing what they were doing, and my heart started bumping, and my heart was already bumping with the communicationslootsen, but it just made sense. I integrated the world of visualization and facilitation by just doing it, and luckily there was a match made in heaven from my part. They liked me. And I was invited to join the team, and I did a train the trainer, and I think it was end of 2015, Frank, because we started exactly at the same day.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was end of 2015, and since then
I think it was the beginning of 2016. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, could be. Yeah, and it was really nice. It came together in a really nice way, with just having a cup of tea, ending up in this wonderful journey so far.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Jill, how about you?
Gosh, I met you in 2016 at the International Practitioners Conference. You were there with Stefan, and that was really my true introduction to bikablo. And I loved it so much, I came to both the sessions that you did, you and Stefan, and just followed along, and then stayed in touch. And you came to the US, and hosting you and Carola here was so wonderful. And that began my journey, and that's where I ultimately met Ali in 2018 when we were in Cologne for the first training.
Trainer. Yeah. Thank you, Jill. Fantastic. Alexandra, how about you?
Well, I went to a training here in Peru, where Desi was the trainer, and that's how I met bikablo by the first time. And I don't have words to explain what I felt at that time, because I always like to draw and to be related to arts. I'm a psychologist, but I'm very related to art. So I was very, very happy and amazed with what was happening there. And I also liked it so much, the way that we can work with people and with groups using these drawings, and that was fantastic for me. And then I get in touch with you, Frank, and that's how I started my journey here. Yes.
It's so funny because I didn't realize that sort of we're connected in these difficult ways, not difficult, in these different ways, where Daisy and I started together. Daisy taught in Peru, in Lima, and Carola and I did the tour through the US where Jill hosted us. And it's, I think it also shows a little bit how much, how the person-to-person contact is so important to us somehow, that we sort of need to get to know each other, and that there is a personal connection. And just like Daisy said, that it's like this match made in heaven. It's sort of, yeah, it's somehow a connection, and it just needs to click, and it just needs to work out. I really like that. So now we know that you are, or how you became to be global trainers, but what would you describe, how would you describe a typical day in your day-to-day business? And I know, because I know that bikablo is not all that you do, you know, I know there are different parts to what you do in your day-to-day business. And this time, let's do the other way around. Alexandra, why don't you start? What would a typical day like in your day-to-day life?
How could be a typical day? Well, maybe what it is very typical in my days after I started to be a bikablo trainer is I start the day very happy. I'm very like motivated with all the things that I have to do. For example, all the coordinations that we do here in Peru with Christian to have the trainings. We have a lot of previous work to do because we are just two in the company that we have here in Peru. So we have to do everything, like, for example, calling the customers, sending them the bills, and checking if they have pay or not, everything. We do all the administrative work. So when the time is close to the day that we have to deliver the training, we have to prepare our markers, which is fantastic. It takes a lot of time, but I like it so much, you know, like to do this check if they are okay or if they need more ink. And so it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it so much. So,
and apart from bikablo, like what is it that you do on top of that? Because I know that it's not just bikablo that you do with Navelab, but also
well in Navelab we also give some trainings to help companies to work with their teams, like to help them develop the soft skills, like leadership or communication. For example, in communication, it helps us a lot to use visualization, because it's more a way in where you can reinforce the communication you can have with your team. So we teach, we give the bikablo trainings, and also we use the visual thinking to do our other training. So yeah, that's the other things that we do. And in my case, besides Navelab, I'm a psychotherapist and I have some patients. Yeah, and where sometimes I use visualization to clarify what they are thinking, what they are struggling with. So yeah,
fantastic.
that's yeah.
Very interesting. And we're going to deepen that conversation later when we finish that round. So Jill, and how about you? If there is a typical day, what would it look like?
Oh, a typical day, which has already started for me, is having a strategy session with a client to determine if the services that I have to offer are a good fit. And I use visuals in that process. I use a template that I've created. So I weave this work of visuals throughout the strategy sessions that I do, the training that I deliver. I'm an instructional designer and educator by background. And so I have designed my own programs in communication, presentation skills, train the trainer skills, how to be a great trainer, facilitation and coaching. And so I use visuals throughout those programs. So I might be preparing for a program. Yesterday I was delivering a program virtually on leadership. And so that would be a big piece of it. I would say also in my coaching practice. So I coach folks on their professional growth and development within their organizations. And I use templates that I've created to gather their data and help them see what they're saying. And so it becomes part of my coaching process also. So a day could include a strategy session, some training, some coaching with someone, or some facilitation.
Okay. And again, we're going to hear more about that later on. And Daisy, what would a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, I'm tempted to describe a day since the Corona times, because it's interesting what kind of direction it goes at the moment. I realize that every day I use visualization, even though there's hardly like paid jobs at the moment. It's really the language I apply in everything I do. I integrate it, even with phone calls with friends or colleagues. I try to sort out thoughts, my thoughts or our thoughts, and I send them afterwards, even if they like it or not, or ask it or not. I just send them my notes, and it helps me to communicate. And that's one way of applying it. And in the former days, I just use it in trying to clarify what is happening, not only for me, but also for the group. And sometimes the visualization is on the foreground, that the product is really important, for example, with trainings I deliver. But in a lot of cases, it's happening at the side. It's a tool I use to be in a process to help people. And I try to find balance in both worlds, training and facilitation, because there I can grow the most and I can do the most.
Yeah, for me, especially also now in the days of Corona, I'm drawing a lot with my little daughter, so that's a lot of fun. Rediscovering the bikablo books, especially bikablo 1, where there are lots of animals in there, and Ellie always wants me to draw a cow. But we also have a large paper roll in our living room, and we just visualize the most important things to do for the week. So, just a couple of visuals on, I don't know, calling the kindergarten, or what else is on the list right now? Yeah, I'm about to participate in a beekeeping course, and I bought a beehive, but I still need to find a site where to put the beehive. So that's also on there. And of course, in another typical day, it would be just delivering bikablo courses or delivering Lean Six Sigma classes. Right now, especially thinking about or finalizing how to bring this into the virtual world, even though we have delivered classes already, but how to perfect it in a way that the learning experience is still extraordinary, just like it is in our classroom classes, I'd say. But now, you talked about your professional backgrounds, like being a psychiatrist, difficult, easy for you to say, and the design instructor, instructional design.
Instructional design, yeah.
Instructional design. And Daisy, what's your background again?
Well, it's such a difficult question because it happened years ago. It's funny because in preparing this call, I was trying to make a journey, a sketch note, and it's just such a weird journey. I studied neuropsychology, so I thought I would end up being a neuroscientist or a psychologist, and I ended up in drawing communication. I think that's the best journey ever. I love my study neuropsychology, and I also love the unexpected road it got. So I would say neuropsychology, but I think my core business is communication and clarifying communication.
Mm-hmm. But looking at your profession, so again, you already said it has been a while ago, but looking at neuropsychology, like how would you describe, and especially being on that journey, how would you describe the value or the value add of visual facilitation? Where do visuals add, well, most of value in your day-to-day work, but also having your background in mind?
What I realized that while studying neuropsychology, I was completely addicted to everything about the brain. Luckily, I discovered that we are more than our brains. We are our hearts, we are our hand, we are our feet, and those things came together. But what I like about applying my knowledge from, for example, neuropsychology, is that people love scientific facts or sense making, why it's helpful for the brain. And I'm so lucky that in a lot of cases I can explain it. And also in a lot of cases, I'm very interested to learn more about it because it really makes sense, helping the brain memorize things, grabbing things, having an overview, seeing things, but most of all, using it in an energetical, good way and not overloading like a one piece of the brain, only language, but also using everything else that is so valuable. And visualization is one of them. And they love it when we talk about it, because it makes sense.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, actually, almost in every training, I try to temperature a little bit. If they all feel comfortable in being here, in the training, and usually there's always one or two people, they say, well, my boss, he says, what are you going to do with it? People around me, oh, are you in this drawing training? And I try to explain from the brain why it makes sense to use visualizations, and people, something falls off their shoulders or something. You unlock something like, okay, I'm allowed to be here.
Yeah.
And especially when I draw it, and you have a lot of theories about it, but I think it helps them to be in the training.
Yeah, thank you. And Jill, how about you with your professional education back in mind? So how would you describe the value of visual facilitation?
Sure, I love the question because it does make me think back quite a ways to when I started teaching and working in settings with children who had special education needs. And so our goal, and so I'm thinking, I can still picture one of my favorite students. He was 5 years old, he was in kindergarten. And my work was really to reach him entirely. So that meant not just the words in the book, it meant the crayons on the paper, it meant engaging him as an entire little human being. And so that has continued through leaving education into starting my own business over 20 years ago. The instructional design or the training programs I create involve the entire person. So it's seeing, it's hearing, it's doing. How do I make sure that people are engaged with their whole bodies and learning in the best way possible? And so through reading a lot of education and the occasional scientific piece, I've learned that that's the best way to reach people, and that's the way I love to do it. So that's how I've really brought it into my work.
I think that's very interesting. You know, both of you said that the entire person and the whole body is very important to the learning process. I would like to touch back on that, but first I would like to hear what Alexandra has to say.
I was thinking about that. Difficult to say, but well, I will start that by saying that I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a psychoanalytical psychologist, psychotherapist.
Okay.
So we in that field we mostly work with the unconscious mind of ourselves, which is a very big topic and a very big difficult area to know. It takes you a lot of years to discover more about yourself and more how you sometimes do things that you don't plan, but then they appear. So I was thinking that in the case of visualization, it helps a lot to put in to take out of your head or your mind and put that ideas and that thoughts and that all that concerns that you may have and put that in a paper or in a wall. It helps you a lot to see what it is happening and to discover and to start to maybe to analyze what you are thinking without saying nothing and without putting that in withdrawing. So I think it is very helpful to people for discovering themselves. Yes.
And do you have an example, because you just said sometimes you use it with patients? Do you have an example on how you use it with patients?
Yeah, for example, when they are explaining me how they feel or what is happening with themselves, I sometimes use a kind of sketch noting. So I sketch note what they are saying, and then I show them if they that was what they wanted to say, that was the way they wanted to say the things or not, and to clarify it. And also I once did an exercise in where I asked the person to put in the middle of the paper and then to start drawing all the relationships that he was having with, for example, with family, with friends, with people that they work with, and start to do that connection if the connection is very strong, or it is not so, if they are not talking, for example, with some relative and or some colleague at the company, and start to think about what's happening with that. Because when you see the big, how do you say, the big picture, you say, oh, well, maybe I have to start with doing something in order to reinforce my relationship with, for example, with some colleague or with some relative or something at home. So yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah.
Could I leap in for just
Go
a
ahead.
minute?
Yes, of course.
I was just thinking, I had printed out a couple of examples, and I want to pick up on what Ali is saying. For myself, as a self-reflective tool, I created essentially my year last year from a work perspective, all of my relationships and the key areas. And this was so helpful for me to just put it all down on paper and see it and savor what had gone well. And to think ahead to, what do I want to add to this, and what relationships will I create? So I hope it was a helpful example.
Yeah, it's something similar, not as beautiful as the one that you have, but because it is very like we do that like in a sketch way. But yeah, the idea is the same. Yeah.
It makes it. I guess the main point here again is it makes things tangible. You know, because I have the same thing. It's like your thoughts are fluffy in your head, even though you may think they aren't. You know, even though you may think they're very firm in your head and you know exactly what you want to do. I think once you start drawing it on paper, it becomes so much more tangible, and then you can start, you know, crossing things out again. And I think it's great to have somebody to discuss it with, or you can also discuss with yourself, but then at least, you know, you have something that you have on paper.
Yeah, it's true. And it is even better when you, for example, share that with a colleague or with somebody else, and you start to cross all the different point of views, that, for example, your point of view and the point of view of others, and how you can start to create something new by sharing.
What I like about this a lot is that, you know, the visual or the visual facilitation is, you can use it in so many different ways. You can use it just for yourself. You can use it in a one-to-one coaching or relationship, or you can use it in a one-to-many. And I think you just need to see for yourself where it's the most effective, probably. Two things that I really liked is that, so for example, Desirée, I just know that you have worked with children, and I don't know exactly if it was special education or what the specific term was, but I think you and Jill share experiences with working with visuals and children. Can you share an experience?
Yeah, because suddenly a really nice experience popped up. It wasn't children in this example, but it was youth, and it was youth with a mental disability. And it was last year, I was invited to deliver a bikablo training for psychologists, at least for professionals. And they asked me, can 3 patients or clients, can they join? And I had to think about it, because one of the goals of bikablo is that it's there for everybody, but you also have to have a positive learning experience. So sometimes I separate groups, and sometimes I put them together, because I want to have an eye on everyone. And we decided to work on this inclusion question. And so I had a group of psychologists, I had a group of coaches, and 3 clients with this mental disability, youth. And I think it was one of the most impressive trainings I had, because I was there at the side, but the training was a communication tool itself. The only thing that was happening was creating common understanding. Do we understand each other? There wasn't one single time where I had to worry, do they get it or not? Because they were strong enough to ask the questions. I don't get it, I don't get it. We draw it. And the professionals helped them. And if the professionals weren't clear, they would ask. So all the things I did just happened. And to give a really concrete example, there's a lot of difficult words in healthcare. And one of them is inclusion itself. And only the word inclusion, clarifying in visuals, what does it mean for a client? What does it mean for a psychologist? And what does it mean for me as an outsider? It was the best image ever. And it was such a vulnerable, open, warm experience. And I think that is what, for me, what it's about.
I love that. Also because it's not just about, well, I don't think it's about visualization or visual facilitation at all anymore. It becomes something completely different because it also, just a training experience, you know, just bringing the people together. You know, I think using the training and the visuals, in this case especially, brought people a lot closer. I mean, that's an assumption that I'm making here, but can you confirm that, Dizzy?
Ooh, I'm not sure if it was closer, but I do understand why you would assume that. For me, it was exactly inclusion happening. Okay. Because we're all in it together and we need to live together and we have to understand it together. So it's not about the client has to learn something from me or the other way around. It's togetherness. And I think togetherness was what was happening. And then I was happy.
Yeah, I mean, this really, it gives me goosebumps because it touches a very specific group of people. And I think it has more to do with adding something socially rather than, you know, economically or whatever. But this social part to me is just, or personal part, is so important because, again, you know, we're really adding value to people's lives. It's not just another skill that people take on board, but you really add a lot of value to their lives. I really like that. I wanted to get back to the whole body part because, you know, you were saying that you wanted to reach people with their whole body. It's more than just the brain. It's also the ears, the hands, and the whole body. And I was thinking of the current situation and, you know, the waves of virtual trainings that are being offered now. Also, I mean, yeah, you know, we will offer them as well. I was just wondering, you know, how can you include the whole body when doing that? To me, and it just came up, but to me, that's a mystery because it's going to be very, very difficult. Do you have any thoughts?
Are you asking all of us, or are you?
Yeah, I'm asking all of you. Yeah, I do.
We will be virtual trainings. It's getting people up at the wall. It's making sure that they are engaging their whole body, that they're not just sitting and seeing or sitting and listening, that they're engaging completely. So an example coming up for me is in just over a week, I'll be presenting at Creative Mornings, and it's a field trip. So it's a virtual event. And in an effort to connect with people, there will be 300 people on the call. I've created a template for people to use. And we will be able to put them into breakout groups. So not only will they see and hear me and each other, they'll also have the opportunity to learn just a little bit of drawing and engage all of themselves in the process. And I think that's very much what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer, Frank, to be honest. I think that we are like with that challenge in the group, but I'm sure that we are going to do a great job. But I wanted to share something that I was talking with a person. This was a woman from Colombia that she was asking about the bikablo training, and she was very interested. But because of the coronavirus, she cannot come to Peru. And she told me, well, if you do it online, I will be very interested. And she was giving me some ideas from her perspective of participant, how cool. Maybe the training could be. And when I mentioned her that we were thinking on asking them to work on not just sitting down and doing the sketchnoting, that we are going to ask them to work with big paper and so on, she was happy and she told me, yeah, that's the best way you can do it. If we just sit down, maybe it's not gonna work. I think that's a good idea if you ask us to work like in front of the paper. Standing up. Yeah.
And you know, I do think that we have, I mean, that this is also a time of opportunities and that we have a lot of great ideas and solutions. And at the same time, you know, I'm very much looking forward to be in a room with people again. Because it is just so different, you know, it's just so different to work with people directly, stand next to somebody and give tips and hints and maybe just, you know, grab the arm or put a mark on their paper. So, you know, I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah. I don't have any other specific question. Do you have any other specific examples that you had, I don't know, that you dug out and that you would like to share? Because I know I asked you in advance if there's anything specific, or did you already share? Is there anything left that you would like to share?
Well, maybe I can share one experience that we had last year with Christian. We were working with an energy company. They asked us to do a survey about how was their safety culture there, you know, because they have a lot of technicians and engineers, and they wanted to reinforce the safety area. So we did the interviews. We did some groupal interviews, but when we were to give them the results, instead of using like the typical PowerPoint presentation with the results and the statistics and everything, blah blah blah, we decided to do live mural in where we were explaining the plant manager and the safety supervisor about the results, and they were amazed with that. The plant manager had another meeting after us, and he asked us to stay there for 30 minutes to wait for him, and he wanted to came back to know more because he had a lot of ideas to share with us, and that was like crazy. we had a very long meeting there, and after that experience we had this moment in where we were to share the results with the people, with the technicians and the engineers, because they had to design their plan after the results. So, and they were also amazed, and you don't you cannot imagine how much the amount of ideas that generate, and we were like, oh, this is so awesome. We are very happy with this because people were very into the work that we were supposed to do. So yeah, it was fantastic.
And it's interesting because I think there's two layers to it. You know, one layer is the information that you're giving, that you're transporting, but also the energy. To me, it just sounded what you were saying, that there was all of a sudden people were energized, you know, and creating this energy in the room just by the way you are presenting something, I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
Ali, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did that happen to be Steve and that connect with you?
With Steve? No, with another company, but we did some similar work with him. Steve is a man that works with mining companies and also related to safety and to environment. And we also work with him in a similar way. Yes. You know, these are like difficult. Sometimes here in Peru, they say this is like hard companies because they are very related to energy, to mining, and so they are very like engineer minded. Minded, but they like it a lot. Yeah, this way of working. Yeah.
The reason I mention it is, as we talk about this in our lives, I do a lot of work in nonviolent communication. So I've taken a lot of training, and in my training, I take my notes visually, and people are so fascinated by it, and they want to learn. And so one of the men I went for several retreats, and so got to know people very well. One of the men in the group was so fascinated, and he lives in Peru. He's American, he lives in Peru, he's been there a long time. And I said, oh, you have to get in touch with my colleague, Ali, it'd be great. And it just speaks to our sense of community and how we stay connected and connect other people with us.
Yes.
Yeah, another example of community is that actually this year there is still supposed to be a summer camp here in Cologne for children who can't afford to go on vacation or who are disadvantaged, and we're supposed to do 2 weeks of work with them and just teach them how to use visuals. And I know, Desirée, that you wanted to come as well. And so the odds are that it's going to be canceled. We're not entirely sure yet, but I was I was looking forward to it so much because it would be over 2 weeks, and every morning and every afternoon you would have a different group. But it would be always in the mornings the same group over a week, and so you would have 4 groups in total, 2 morning groups and 2 afternoon groups. And I was looking forward to it a lot, just to, I don't know, to teach kids, to add something, to just add some, yes, skills, but also some value, to their lives. And now the situation is probably going to, force us to cancel it. So we're not entirely sure yet, but I was very much looking forward to it. And a lot of the trainers in Germany and also Desirée, wanted to come by for a day to just help and help and teach. Yeah. Daisy, do you have another example that you would like to share?
Well, I'm still in the former question actually about the digital way, and one of the red threads in this interview is also, we talked about the hands, the head, and the heart, and I realize it's a really big challenge for me personally, since I learn through my body that I only see heads. And I think what I love experimenting with is that I'm starting more and more to believe that this is possible to deliver the quality we're used to as bikablo community if we integrate all these things, not only of transferring technique, but providing this fun, safe, and positive learning atmosphere and using variation a lot. And I think that's one of the things which makes me really happy. I'm still a little bit anxious. Ooh, this digital thing. What about my brain? I have a total shutdown in my brain, but I'm seeing it more and more. And of course, I hope to be back in a physical room again soon, but I see the opportunities. And this is one of them, having this interview, even though I only see your heads. I'm not sure if you're wearing your pajamas, for example, your pants, but it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. And we can use the hands by sketchnoting. We can do little body exercises. And there's other ways of getting information on how people learn. And I think that is something that we have in common. And that is also one of the threats in the bikablo community. And I think it's wonderful that we are sharing this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you will see people up to the waist. At least in our trainings, but maybe not the feet, but I'm pretty sure you will. Yeah. I agree. I think it's a lot of getting used to, And I think feedback is super important, like, can you hear me well? Can you see okay? Is your connection okay? Because, so for example, Jill, every now and then your picture freezes, but we can still hear you okay. So that's why I didn't say anything, but again, and sometimes you just don't know, you may keep talking and you're still on mute, and then people will tell you you're mute. So I think the feedback is super important.
Yeah.
Yes.
For example, I started to use these like cards in meetings, in virtual meetings. For example, if I agree with something, no, or if I cannot hear very well,
Nice.
and you can, maybe it's a way that you can use visuals in meetings, in this kind of virtual meetings.
Yeah. I think it also requires greater flexibility and resiliency on our part. I had no idea, of course, that the screen was freezing at all. We have terrible winds outside. And yesterday I was delivering a virtual session through a different platform, and the internet connection went out for me, but for nobody else. And so I was on the phone, and I proceeded to train the remainder of the course over the phone, having my material in front of me, and colleague, the producer, helped me throughout, and people gain from it. So it is, first, so we're ready if it happens, and being resilient, calm in the process, helping people through.
Yeah, but technology is adding just so much to it, like when I say so much, it offers lots of opportunities, but there's so many things that you need to take care of or watch, or also you're at home, you may be distracted, so I don't know, the dog is running around, or the kid is entering, and saying like, hey mommy, or hey daddy. And I think that's fine, because you share some of your personality and your personal life with the participants. So again, I think that's a good thing. And at the same time, How do I phrase this? As much as I think it may just be a temporary thing, I mean, I think it will go on in terms of, you know, I think we will offer virtual trainings and there will be more virtual offerings. But just like we said already, you know, I can't wait to get back into the training room with people. And old habits never die. It's so funny. Yesterday I bought a small kitchen for children, and I picked it up at somebody's place. And I wanted to go and shake his hand, you know, just as I would typically do, to say like, hey, how are you? And he was just like, oh, maybe we just say hi. And I was shocked. I said like, I'm so sorry, you know, but it just happened because in this moment, and again, I think it has something to do with the brain. Maybe you can confirm that, Daisy, but you know, sometimes I also remember things when I'm at the same place, when I make the same movement, when I'm in a similar situation, you know, all of a sudden my brain is like, oh yeah, oh, you know, all of a sudden I remember something. And in this situation, you approach somebody that you've never met before and you go like, hello. And it was very interesting. I mean, it was one of those moments where I felt like, Frank, you moron.
Oh.
Yeah.
You habitual creature, you.
Yeah, but it's, you know, again, it brings me back to what Desiree said in terms of how do you learn? And you learn with your whole body and you remember things completely differently when you start drawing again, or you start writing a word a different way. Or I remember once there was a scientific experiment with where people studied for, or they had to remember, no, again, yeah, they watched a movie in the cinema and they had to remember the contents of the movie. And 2 weeks later, they were asked to, they had a feedback form. And in one room, they were selling popcorn. Like, so you had the same scent in terms of, it was just like in the movie theater where they were eating popcorn. And it was, so the rates of the people, like the memory rate, like, you know, the answers were a lot better with the people where there was popcorn in the room. So in terms of, you know, you experience with your whole body, you learn with your whole body and with all your senses. And I think that's something that's super important.
Yes, so I have an example of that.
Go ahead.
Frank, you may recognize this book.
Yeah, I do.
So this is a book where Frank and I have articles, but the article, one of the ones I wrote about, was actually working with students and their whole bodies up at the wall. And then at a conference I spoke in Bucharest where people were up at the wall, and it just is so engaging and it's such a different experience. So it's very much to what you're speaking about.
Yeah. And also now that you show the book, you know, lots of memories come back. Lots of memories are coming back.
Indeed. There's a lot of wonderful information and examples about the variety of ways in which people around the world and in a variety of occupations can use exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I really loved, or I really enjoyed hearing about, you know, how Alexandra is using visual facilitation, you know, with some of her patients, or, you know, the examples that Desiree shared in the training with the clients and with the patients. You know, I think this is exciting. As much as I love teaching the courses to normal people, even though normal is maybe not the right word, but I think these situations are somehow special, and I think it's awesome that we can share it, and you know, that we can help these people using visual facilitation. Yeah. So, well, thank you very much for taking the time. It's a public holiday here in Germany. Is it a public holiday where you are as well?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes, actually.
Actually, it is, right? Yeah. So thanks for taking out. So thank you for taking out the hour out of the public holiday. So I would like to do just a finishing checkout round in terms of something that you would still would like to contribute as finishing words to the interview. And Daisy, why don't we start with you?
Oh, just a really nice sentence popped up, but I forgot. But
oh, you can pass. Maybe it comes back.
Let me pass.
Okay. Jill.
Oh, Desi, you're going to give me a little opportunity. I'm just thinking about how much I love talking about this and learning more about people. This informal forum, we don't always have time for that when we're together because we're so focused on learning new things. So to hear new things, I was actually writing notes about things I want to talk with everybody about after the call. So I love this opportunity for community, and it really is a microcosm of what I've experienced in bikablo and in this work in general. I find it to be just fascinating, so much to learn, really exciting.
Thank you. Ali.
Um, can you please repeat again the question?
Just, it's really just to check out in terms of, is there anything that you still would like to add to the interview as a finishing sentence?
Yeah, well, I will invite people that are curious about the visualization to start this journey. And it is not just about learning how to draw or how to add some color and things like that. I will invite them to explore all these different ways that they can apply the visualization as the way that we, for example, we are sharing today. So I know that there are many difficult variations that we can have. So I will invite them to do that, to firstly learn about the technique, and then I will encourage them to do this as like experiments in where they can start applying the visualization. Yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra. Desirée, did it come back to you?
Yeah, thanks to Alexandra, actually, because it was exactly what I wanted to say, that I realize more and more after all these years, it's not about me teaching them something. Of course, I help, but I provide the space where they can think along, what is it, what I want to say or ask, to feel, what is it, how to express it, and to draw, so people can actually move into action towards little positive changes. And I'm there. And that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, to me, I've said that many times, I enjoy working with people a lot. And, it's like this interview to me is like a meeting with friends, and it's just great to see you again. I mean, Desirée is still close, but still far away, even though, it's just in the Netherlands. But then, Jill in the US, Alexandra in Peru. And I feel very connected to you, especially now in these times, where we have regular exchanges, but having the chance to just talk amongst the four of us, just like a little coffee chat, is something that's unique and something that I very much appreciate, because we don't have that time very often. So yeah, to me, a big thank you. Lizzie and I will enjoy the sunny afternoon that we're having. And you will hopefully enjoy the rest of your days. As we say, stay healthy, but also stay positive. And very much looking forward to our next interaction.